All right. Looks like most people are here. So I want to welcome everyone. We're excited to have today our webinar this afternoon. So I want to welcome everyone to the GEFA Water 101 webinar, Discovering What's New in the 2026 Call for Projects. So before we get started, we want to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. One, my name is Brian Woodham. I'm a project manager here at GEFA. So I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. Glad you were able to make it. If you have any questions, there should be a question and answer box at the bottom of your screen, and use that box to submit your questions. So we will be answering questions during the presentation via the question and answer box. And then also we will answer some questions will need to be answered in person. So we'll have a time at the end to answer those questions. So we'll do both questions in person at the end, or using our voice through the end. And then also we can answer your question through the question and answer box. We'll type out the answer. So feel free to ask any questions. That's why we're here. This is what this is for. So without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. And first, I want to introduce Mr. Trey Bennett.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to GEFA Water 101. Um, as many of you know, I'm the brand new executive director here at GEFA. I just started about a month ago, so in many ways, I'm also going through GEFA 101. I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to join us to learn a little bit about what we're all about. Some of you are already working with us, have worked with us in the past, and we look forward to partnering with you further as we look to serve Georgia and get as many water and energy projects done as we can to meet the needs of our wonderful state. So, again, thank you so much for joining today. I hope that this information is useful to you, and I will turn it over to Amanda Carroll.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Again, I just want to reiterate, excuse me, what Trey just said. We appreciate y'all taking the time to be on our webinar, kind of going over the 2026 call for projects, and hope that you learn something new and ask all the questions. Next slide, please. So today we'll be discussing lessons learned from the 2025 call for projects. We'll go through the scoring changes for the 2026 pre-application. Then we'll review the Hurricane Helene resilience scoring. We'll navigate to the GEFA website and do a demonstration and a walkthrough the 2026 pre-application. And then we'll finish the webinar off with the next steps for the borrower. Next slide, please. So during the call for projects period, the number one comment that GEFA received from everyone using the QuickBase is, can we have the ability to save the pre-app and go back to complete at a later time? Well, we heard you and we have made this happen. Jasmine will be demonstrating this new feature later on in the webinar when she walks through the pre-application. So for the 2025 call for projects, GEFA added two new sections to the project scoring criteria, and that's the priority project types and priority planning elements. And during the scoring process for these two new sections, GEFA came up with some lessons learned to hopefully make it a little bit easier for scoring for the 2026 call for projects. And so the first one is we'd like to add some text boxes for the priority project types for the borrower, whoever's completing the pre-app, to give more detailed explanation on how that project fits with whichever item is selected here, the priority types on the screen. We also wanted to limit the project description that is requested earlier on in the pre-application to a certain number of characters. We want that to be a pretty brief description of the project. And then in this section with the priority types, is where we can add a text box and, get a little bit more elaborate with our descriptions of how this project fits that priority project type. Next slide. Under the priority planning element seen here, we wanted to create a text box for the community to state the specific page number that the regional water plan that is relevant. We had asked for people to just attach the section. But we were receiving the full plan instead of just that relevant section. And so it made the scoring take a little bit longer than was necessary. So if we can add a text box here to give the specific page number if they're going to put the whole plan, that would be helpful for the scoring. And the final item we wanted to learn that we learned from the scoring is adding a text box for the community to share the page number for the capital improvement plan that showed where the projects mentioned. Here again, we were attaching the whole capital improvement plan, and some folks are doing really well with it. We were getting 100-page documents, and just trying to search through that took a little bit of time for the scoring. So we were, 60 plus projects for each SRF, clean water and drinking water. We just want to be a little quicker with our scoring. So if we can add the text box to get down to the specific page, that was going to help us out. All right, next slide, please. So for the 2026 pre-application changes, there were a few additional changes that we wanted to make. One change, we added points for planning and design only projects, as you can see here. GEFA would like to encourage more of these engineering only loans so that when the borrower does come back to us and is ready to move forward with the construction loan, there is a much better cost estimate from the engineer. So we don't have to go back and to the board and ask for additional funds. That just takes a little bit of extra time. I know when y'all want to get ready with the construction, y'all want to have the funds in place and ready to go. We also added points for those projects that are much further along in the process. So if you can see here, there's 20 points for projects that have both their state environmental review process done, as well as the plans and specs approved by EPD. All right, next slide, please. Under the priority project types, we decided to add an innovation option for those projects that use the innovative approach. And we had a discussion here at GEFA, like, what does that mean? What innovation? What are we looking for? And so we do realize that innovation can look different for different borrowers. Innovation for a very large borrower could look different compared to a very small borrower. So we tried to encompass some definitions here that we thought would be helpful to make it clear on what we wanted to define as innovative. Next slide, please. And finally, the final change we made to the 2026 call for projects was reworking the points to have them add up to 100 just for ease of scoring here. So that's it for changes, lessons learned, and I will now turn it over to Haley.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, so really quickly, I'm going to go through the Hurricane Helene Resilience Fund scoring. Next slide, please. So as you can see, these slides are very similar. The project scoring is very similar for Helene as the regular SRF projects. So one of the main differences is that the Helene projects need to have some kind of resiliency aspect to it. And so as you can see at the top, we have criteria for system resilience, and that is out of 35 points. But all of the other scoring criteria like priority project type, priority planning elements, readiness to proceed, and applicant status, those are all the same. And as Amanda mentioned before, all of these numbers add up to a nice even 100 when we are doing our project scoring. You can also find a detailed breakdown of all of the scoring criteria on our website. I will put the link specifically for the Helene in there in a minute, but I've also dropped in the clean water SRF and the drinking water SRF project scoring criteria for you as well. And now I am going to pass it off to Jasmine Patel, who's going to do a walkthrough of our pre-application process.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to walk through how exactly the application looks and where to find it. So I'm going to share my screen as well. Okay, so if you can see, I've pulled up the Georgia, like I've just searched up Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, and then I will go to the website. And there's a few places that you can access the call for projects. There's this banner right here, and that will take you there. And additionally, you can also go to water programs and click call for projects. Um, so you can go there a bunch of different ways. And then we have two areas, and I would very much recommend going through reading what the call for projects are about, when they're closing. They are closing on December 31st, 2025. And you can click the links here to go to the pre-application right there. And so this is the page that you will see when you come to the pre-app. You will have clean water, drinking water, Georgia Fund, and Helene. There's a few different ways to get to Helene. This is also one of the ways you can get to the Helene pre-app. And we're going to go through a clean water. So we're going to do this one right here. And this is what the pre-application looks like. I will mention a few things. I have already gone ahead and filled out some of the information. So I have City of Bryan as my applicant. I have all this information put in, and we made a bunch of this information required, and this red asterisk is what will tell you that this field needs to be filled in for you to even be able to save and close this application. So when you're looking at it, you'll see a red asterisk and just know that that's your cue to make sure that that field is filled out. And so I put in all this information, and what we're gonna do is I'm gonna save and close, and this is the part where we're gonna see what happens. So I'm just gonna click save and close, and you'll be brought to a page that says, "Thank you for your submission. Please use the link sent to the primary contact email address." So if you look at the pre-app where there's primary contact, this is the email that will be sent. This is the email address that the link will be sent to. So what you could do if you're an engineer filling this out is you could put your email initially, and then when you're ready to submit the final, you can put the primary contact's email. Or what you can do is you can put the primary contact's email initially and then tell them to forward you the email. And this email is going to look something like this right here. So it'll just tell you, "Thank you for beginning a clean water SRF pre-application." And it'll give you a few pieces of information. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click this external access link. This link will give you access to the stuff that you've already filled out. And so if I click this link right here, I will get everything I filled out initially. And as you can see, all of this information was what I had done in the first go around. And again, I've filled that information out from the first time. And as you can see, now I'm going to go through like each point in the application. So we ask for procurement, and then you can go ahead and fill out all the information for who is going to certify the procurement. And then, as Amanda mentioned, that we give points for design, planning, and engineering only for our readiness to proceed. So if you clicked yes, you wouldn't have this second part show up, where it asks you if you have your SERP, your technical review, or both of them done. So you could select no and then click none of the above, but that will mean that you would get 0 points right there. You could also select that you've got both of them or that you've gotten the plans and specs, but we do require, if you do select that, that you attach a copy of this letter. Going forward, we have compliance and water benefits, and same thing here. You will select one of these options, any of the options, or you can select none. the ones that will apply to your project. And then we ask you to explain how your project is doing that. And this is again something Amanda was mentioning, that we want you to explain how your project meets the criteria above. And it's going to be similar to priority project types again. If you click at something, and here we only ask you to select one, but we do ask you to explain your answer. And don't feel free to open any links and see what they're talking about. This will let you know about all of our CWSRF eligibilities. And so read through those. You can learn about conservation. And I would say play around with it and see if anything from your project or components of your project apply to any of these project types. Because if they do, you'll be able to get extra points. Going forward, there's priority planning elements. Again, this is something Amanda mentioned before. And as she had mentioned, we have put, if you do select yes, we ask you to upload that plan. And then we did say applicable plan and section, but we also give you the chance to indicate the page numbers and provide an explanation. Again, I don't have any of those things, so I'm going to say I didn't do it, and you can just uncheck that box. And then same thing with capital improvement plan. We ask you to put either your asset management plan or capital improvement plan, and then indicate those relevant pages. As well as rate making, same thing. We ask you to upload the relevant documentation, and this will ensure that you get the necessary points. We also have the water rates dashboard, and GEFA requires all applicants to verify that their utilities, water, and sewer rates are reported on the water rates dashboard. So you can open this link and see if your rates are up to date. So you'd go to the dashboard right there in the link, right there, and then you can open that up and see if your utility has all the rates up to date. So if this is loading, we can walk through and see, I'll pick, for example, a random county like Culloden, and then you'll look at it and then you'll see all of these information, just verify that it's true. And then if it's not true, we do ask you to email waterrates@uga.edu and they will update that. And then you can also let us know based on whichever one you do, what you did. And then the final section is what applicant, like what's your status? So you could be a first-time borrower, you could be a water first community, or a plan first community. And this one's very simple. You just click it and then we'll confirm it for you, and then you're good to go. Lastly, just certify, put the date. And then furthermore, this is the part where Amanda did talk about, and I've talked about while I was going through this walkthrough, is submitting the final. So you need to select this checkbox for us to know that you're done filling out the application. And I will also point out something. When you click that, you'll see that there's a red asterisk that shows up. So this means that there's certain things that were required, not required initially, but then were required after the fact. And the reason this is the way that it is because we wanted to make it savable, and the only way to make it savable was to make sure to ask for these fields at the end. And as you can see, I filled out all this information. If I'm looking, I have a few pieces of information that I didn't fill out in the first go around. So I will just put a county. Right now, I'm just going to put something random. And then I'll say, is it an authority? No. Does it require an NPDES permit? No. And again, something I would say is play around, because if I did select yes, I'd be asked the permit number. And if this is the case, what you can do, and you don't know the permit number, is you can just go ahead and uncheck that checkbox and then save it again, and then come back to this later. So come back to it later, select yes, select no, select yes, put the number in, and then like once you select that number, you've put that number in, what you're gonna do is put that in again, just check everything is right. So I'm gonna look over it, and then I will save and close. And this is what you should get at the end. It's thank you for your submission. Your pre-application is final and will be submitted to GEFA for review. I will like to mention, if you get a login page, please know that something went wrong. and contact me and I will help you fix this right away. And that's it for my walkthrough. I will hand over to Brian for the next steps of what will happen after this.
Hello. Before we move over into the next steps, I want to show everyone where the loan application is. I also want to reiterate that what Jasmine just went over was the pre-application. You also must submit a loan application. These are two different things. So here we can show you where the loan application is held. So if you go to the GEFA website,
Okay. I'll share my screen.
yes,
Oh, geez.
thank you. If you go to the GEFA website, go to the application process, and then at the top there is apply here online. There are other things here to help you with that, but this is where you would submit your actual loan application. So the pre-application and the loan application are two different documents. Um, Thank you for showing them where it was, Jasmine. We'll go back to the slides now, and if we can go to the next slide. So a pre-application is used to be considered for principal forgiveness. So if you want to apply for our federal our SRF, our federal money, then we always encourage that you put a pre-application in. You can even put a pre-application in for if you're applying for state money, just to give us a heads up about what the project is going to. But everyone must fill out a full application to be considered for a GEFA loan. So I want to say that again. Everyone must put in a full application to be considered for a GEFA loan. So if you notice here, this is the GEFA project life cycle, the pre-application, the full application. Next is your board approval. Then we go into loan execution, the project, and then project closeout. So again, we encourage everyone to put in a pre-application, but you must put in a loan application. And then if we go to our next slide, it'll show us the dates for our application deadline. So what this is showing us is that if you put it in by the date on the left, then you will most likely go to the board meeting on the date to the right. So if we run into any issues, then that may extend the process and we might have to push you to another board date. But these are the board dates that we have for the calendar year 2026, February 19th, May 14th, August 20th, and November 13th. And then on the left, you see those respective application deadlines. And so though these deadlines exist, we encourage you to just put your application in whenever you feel like you are ready. This will allow us to be prepared. Let's say there's missing information or additional information that we need, or maybe you just put in a loan application and then we recommend that you might qualify to put in a pre-application. That's all talks that only start when you have an application in with us. So we accept applications year round. These are not the dates that we accept. These are only the deadlines. So you can submit your application at any time, and we encourage that you do so. Next slide, please. So now we'll get into next steps for the borrowers. So you've put in your pre-application, you've put in your loan application, now you're done. No. So there are things that you can do as the borrower that not only helps yourself, but also helps GEFA in the process of going to the board. That includes the audits, the state environmental review process or SERP, and also knowing who your project manager is. So we will go over each one of these. Next slide, please. The first one is audits. So we cannot even score you if we do not have the latest financial audits for your community. The way we check those, we keep them on file ourselves, so they must be provided the last four fiscal years. We need to have those on file at GEFA for us to consider you. But even before we do that, we check with the Department of Accounts and Auditing, DOAA website. They have a very helpful eligibility table that we use that you can just go on the website. The site is provided below, and also I think will be in the chat. This website is what we use to see if you are eligible for funding. This is the first place we check because if you are ineligible for funding, then we cannot move forward at all with the loan. So we encourage you to do this before you even submit an application to us. So that's the first thing that you can do. The next slide. The next slide is our state environmental review process, also known as the SERP. So before I get started, I do want to say that this process can take 30 to 90 days, depending on the project and what we do and what EPD has to do. So we always encourage people to start this process as soon as possible. A favorable position that we would like to be in is by the time you go to the board meeting, your SERP is already finished. It can be in process, but we would prefer that it's already finished. So you can get this started after you submit, or even before you submit any kind of pre-application or application. So this is the process and how it goes. First, you'll submit a preliminary project description to GEFA. And what GEFA will do is use that to generate a loan number and what's called an ECF, an environmental certification form, and additional information to EPD. Now, this is Georgia EPD, the Environmental Protection Division, who handles our state environmental review process, working in partners with GEFA. So after we send the ECF to them, they return it back to us, and then they start the process. They'll decide if it's the CE process or the non-CE process. And in this portion is where it will diverge. So a CE or categorical exclusion, that process will take a different route. A non-CE, which is notice of no significant impact, that project will take a different route. EPD knows which one it will fall under, and they will be in communication with the community and the engineer, whoever is taking care of the SERP, to continue the process. The applicant will submit the required documents to EPD, and then EPD sends a letter and checklist to the applicant. There's a public comment period at times, and then you issued the final approval. So for instance, the public comment period can be for 30 days. And so that adds to the time in which it would take for you to receive that final approval. So this is another thing that you as the borrower can be working on after your application is submitted. Next slide. And contacting your PM. So here is the list of the speakers today. We have Trey Bennett, who is our executive director. We have Judy Adler. She will be answering questions after me. Judy Adler will be is the director of water resources. We have Amanda Carroll, who is a senior PM and team lead here. Myself, I am Brian Woodham. I'm a project manager 3. I work with drinking water and some clean water projects. We have Jasmine Patel, who primarily works with our applications. So if you have any questions about the pre-application or the application, then you can reach out to Jasmine Patel. And then also Haley Cotton, who is also a PM1 here, and she is primarily over the Helene, but also works with clean water and drinking water projects. So feel free to reach out to any one of us if you have any questions. Also, your PM may reach out to you for additional information. So in this time between the application and the board, communication is very important. We don't want anything to drop through the cracks. So please look out for any emails from GEFA, but also feel free to email GEFA for check-ins or if you have any questions. So that ends what you can do as the next step for borrowers. And so what we want to do now is open it up for questions with Judy.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I just wanted to encourage folks, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. You can access it at the bottom of your screen. We have had a few questions already, and we have partly answered them in writing, but I wanted to elaborate a little bit, especially about what happens after you submit that pre-application and elaborate on what Brian walked us through. So after the deadline, December 31st, our team is going to be scoring those projects. We also are going to be looking at what the affordability score is, which is a way that we gauge which communities are considered small and disadvantaged communities in the state. And we do that scoring, and then we put the projects in priority. And we determine which of the projects that were submitted for the federal programs are eligible for additional subsidy, something called principal forgiveness, which is, it's like a grant, but it's not a grant. But it's, you know, you could be eligible for subsidy, for some free money, if you will, if your project scores high enough and if your affordability score is at a certain level. So we will go through that. We will make that determination and we will publish those lists. So you'll be able to see what your project score is and whether you're eligible for principal forgiveness. And I would say, again, in order to be eligible for principal forgiveness, you have to submit a pre-application. But you are allowed to go ahead and submit a full application without that process if you want to, but you will not be eligible again for any principal forgiveness through our federal funds. After that, you can submit a full application at any time. But again, there are all these things that need to happen before we present them to the board. The financial audits that Brian mentioned. And as you can see, you'll get more points the further along you are in the environmental review process. So we encourage y'all again to get started on that as soon as possible. Now that CERT process is not required for our state funding programs. And also for our state funds, we don't have principal forgiveness. We don't have subsidy from that pot of money. We would like you, again, to submit a pre-application. It helps us at GEFA with planning in particular, but you don't have to. You can go straight to the full application if you'd like to. So I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. I hope that clarifies some of the questions that we had. I'm going to go back and look. I don't see any other open questions. I'll just wait one more minute just to make sure. Okay, I don't see any others. I know there is one person that had some issues with seeing the application when Jasmine was going through it. Again, if you all need help, that's what we're here for. If you have issues with going through your application, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. Please don't wait until New Year's Eve. Please submit those applications, those pre-applications, excuse me, early. I want to distinguish between that and the full application. But I just want to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar. I see Amanda pop up. Did you want to clarify something?
I did. Haley's been doing a really good job putting stuff in the chat. So I just wanted to pop on and just let folks know if they wanted to put in for Helene funding, the sooner you go ahead and put your pre-app in, the sooner the PMs, the project managers over that, Haley and Andrew Briscoe, can review it and make sure that it does meet the resilience criteria. So they can read through it for you and kind of
Yeah.
review it and make sure it actually is applicable and give you a call and talk through it. So that's an incentive to go ahead and kind of get it in so they can go ahead and be reviewing it so that there is questions about it. We can make sure that everything is in there that needs to be, or if there's questions for EPA. So
Yeah.
just a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a push, channeling my Haley and Andrew Briscoe, trying to get y'all to put some pre-apps in.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, the earlier you can get it to us, the better. And I would say also, if you have questions, again, I know this Helene Resilience Funding, it's exciting, it's new, it's different. And I imagine eligibility is probably going to be one of the biggest questions that we get. Please reach out to us. We do have more questions now, so let's see. When do we anticipate the 2026 draft IUP, that's intended use plan, that's SRF lingo? When do we expect to be published? So again, our deadline is December 31st. We will be working in the month of January. We hope to get done by the end of the month, scoring all of those projects. We already have a draft of the IUP without the without the project list. So, I'm hopeful, or at least the Helene one, we have that ready. I'm hopeful that, sometime in February, March, but I just can't say an exact date, but that's what we're hoping for. Let's see. Can I complete the pre-application or should our engineer complete the process? That's totally up to you. Jasmine gave you some tips. So if you do have an engineer, complete it, so they can be sent the um, access to the link and you can change the contacts later back to the community contacts if you want. That really is up to you and the community as far as who applies. But I would say if the engineer completes the application, please review it. Please at least review it. But of course, you can get help from engineers if you choose to. Let's see. Is there only one opportunity to submit a pre-application each year? Yes. That process we only do once a year. I will say the Helene Resilience Fund, this is probably the only time we're going to do a call for projects. It's not like our regular clean water and drinking water programs that have been going on since some of them since the 1980s. This is a one-time specialized fund. So this is not going to happen next year unless we don't get enough applications. And if that's the case, then we will submit another call for projects in the future. Okay. Is the pre-application due on the 31st of each year? Angel is asking. Usually. It typically is. There was one year because I guess it was last year, we made some significant changes to the scoring. So we actually had a pre-application deadline that went into the following year. So typically it is at the end of the calendar year, but it can change. There's nothing that tells us that has to be the date. Wait one more minute. See if anything else pops up.
Hey, Judy, can I elaborate on why it's the end of the year?
Sure. You want to talk about the cap grant cycle? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about the cap grant cycle, if that's okay.
of course.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I should have had my handy dandy cycle up.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, so every year, the reason we're doing this because every year we have to apply for the capitalization grant from EPA. And so right now it's 2026 call for projects because we're applying for the 2026 funding in May. So we have to apply for it by May 1st to hopefully receive it by the end of the federal fiscal year. Fingers crossed that they're ready to work and make it happen for us, which is September 30th. And so in order to get that done, we have to have time to review it and process it and score it and post it and principal forgiveness. So this is hopefully going to give us some time to get all of that done and apply by the May 1st deadline so that we have our funds pretty quickly to start lending them out.
Amanda, thanks for that clarification. Yeah, those are important details. And again, we want to let you know that's how we hope the cycle turns out. Last year things didn't work on that timeline because of everything going on at the federal level. But again, fingers crossed, as Amanda said. I don't see any other questions. So again, I just want to thank everyone for participating. I think many of y'all know we have an amazing team at GEFA, and I just want to commend our GEFA team members that were involved in this webinar. Brian was the lead organizer for this webinar, and he did a great job. Jasmine, updating the scoring, updating the application, putting everything online. That is her project, and she just has demonstrated so much initiative. So I wanted to commend her for that. Amanda, I want to thank you for your decades of leadership and for mentoring the new team members that we have at GEFA. Haley for successfully launching with Andrew the new Helene Resilience Funding Program, and Mandy and Susan that you can't see, but they have been working behind the scenes to help us out with organizing this webinar. So a lot of gratitude for our team here at GEFA. Again, I just want to encourage you, start your application now if you haven't already. Don't wait until the last minute. Please don't submit on New Year's Eve. Even if you're not ready, take a look at it so you can submit those questions now, please. We will be sending an email out with resources and the slides, so be on the lookout for that after this webinar in your email box. Okay, with that, thanks again, everyone. We will hopefully see you out there in the state of Georgia in person or at our next webinar. Take care.